Okay, gang, we'll get going here as far as our meeting this morning. We are going to be actually videotaping this kind of short presentation that I'm going to be giving today, so that's why I've got the microphone here. So forgive me in advance, but we're basically going to be talking with you guys this morning about the world of the online course or courses that you've signed up for next school year. And we are going to be sending this information to your parents during the next couple of days here, so that they have the information that they need to kind of really inform your family's conversation about the online class that you're going to be taking for next year, because this is a new opportunity for you. It's a very exciting kind of an opportunity, but at the same time, it's very important that as a school, we are articulating to you, describing to you kind of the details of what you're going to be signing up for, what you're going to be experiencing for next year. So that's kind of what's going on. Let's start with this. Please raise your hand if you're a ninth grader, current ninth grader. Okay. Raise your hand if you're a 10th grader. Okay, so a combination. All right. Raise your hand if you are taking or if you signed up for one online course for next year. Okay, put your hand down. More than one, raise your hand. Okay, so pretty significant mix here. Okay, very good. For students who are going to be 10th graders next year at the high school here, the remarks that we're going to make in this morning's kind of meeting has to do exclusively with the online elective course or courses that you've signed up for. It does not have to do with the health course that you're going to be taking for next year. Everybody's going to be, every 10th grader's going to be taking an online health course next year. That is a little bit different than what I'm going to be talking about this morning as far as the online elective or electives classes that you've signed up for next year. So there are a number of different kind of topics that we're going to go over briefly in this morning's conversation. And I would ask you to think carefully during the conversation if you have any individual questions that come up in your mind as I kind of go through this information, because we had 2 student sessions yesterday just like this. And towards the end of the meeting, there were literally 15, 20 questions that students were asking about kind of the information that we were talking about here this morning. So I'd encourage you to just keep that in mind. And if you come across things you have a question on, please ask that towards the end so that we can kind of be as helpful as we can to you as far as the online course. So again, these are kind of our topics here that we're going to be covering as far as giving you some more detailed information about the online class that you're signing up for next year. Because our sense is at the high school here is that generally speaking, we don't have a real strong sense of what the world of online coursework is, what the expectations or requirements are going to be for you. So for example, raise your hand if you've taken an online course before. Okay, 2 people out of, or 3 people out of, 70 or so. We've had probably about a half dozen students in the last 2 days who've indicated they've taken an online class in the past. So the vast majority of students at the high school here, we don't have a great command of what the world of online schooling is supposed to look like, or what it even, is going to be like when you start taking this course. We want to clarify as much as we can for you so you can make an informed decision if you want to proceed with your online course. So let us begin with this category here, kind of why this is a really good opportunity for you starting next year. And maybe even a broader kind of sense of it. Why are we doing this as a school? Why has this come up for next school year as such a big push with the world of online courses? We currently have about 380 students at the high school here who have signed up to take at least one online elective course for next year. And That is a really large number. It's about, maybe 1 out of every 6 or 7 students at the high school here are going to be taking an online elective next year, and that's great. And the reason that this is being offered as an opportunity to you has to do with the straight A grant that Mentor was awarded within the last year or so. So as we all know, the building physically is transforming as far as the hub redesign, all of the classrooms being redesigned that we're all kind of experiencing right now. As you know, each of you are going to be issued a MacBook Air for next school year, and that's going to be a big new initiative starting next year. One of the portions of this straight A grant that the district won last year had to do with expanding the online offerings, the online course offerings that students could take starting next year. So that's why this opportunity is, in play for everybody for next school year. And it greatly expands the numbers of courses as far as class options that you have to take for next school year. It greatly increases the numbers of class offerings that you can take for next school year as opposed to kind of our current class offerings at the high school in the traditional kind of classroom environment. So it's a great opportunity that students at Mentor High School have not had in the past. And it again provides to you a big set of choices as far as how you'd like to proceed academically. The last bullet point there is extremely important as far as preparation for the future. I think as we all know, the world of technology is transforming our lives in obviously a huge number of ways as far as your experience as a high school student, as far as what you're going to experience at college or your post-high school plans, as far as where you're headed professionally ultimately. The world of technology is just transforming how those different experiences look or how they, your day-to-day experiences. So the more that we can provide opportunities for you to kind of almost like immerse ourselves in technological offerings, the better off you're going to be as far as kind of your long-term trajectory. So there's a number of reasons why these online courses are a really good opportunity for you as a high school student at Mentor here. Now, having said that, I want to get a little bit more specific with both you and your parents as far as what these online courses are going to look like. And I apologize in advance. Some of this information is going to be probably a little bit maybe sobering or a little bit surprising to you. But it's our job at the school to do our best to kind of communicate with you what exactly these courses are going to be kind of composed of, how they're going to be run, so forth and so on. So we've kind of set this section up basically as a series of questions, and we're going to go through some of them. So the first question, maybe the most important question: who is going to be teaching my class? Who is going to be the teacher for this class? Is it going to be a Mentor High School teacher? Is it going to be somebody I see on a daily basis? Is it going to be somebody I can, teacher I can talk with in the halls, so forth and so on? That's not the way that these courses are being run at all. The teachers for the online courses that you have signed up for are not Mentor High School teachers. They are not teachers or employees of the Mentor School District. They are teachers who are employed by a large organization called Pearson. And Pearson is one of the industry leaders in the world of online schooling. And they have a number of different divisions in their company, and one of the divisions is called Pearson Connections. And it's from that division that you are going to be taking your online course. But the teacher who you're going to be working with is employed by Pearson. The teacher is not a Mentor High School teacher. So in our previous sessions, that came as a real kind of a surprising piece of information to students. And it's important that you understand that, before we begin in August, because that fact alone has some significant kind of implications or consequences as far as how your experience is going to go with the individual class. The second question, how am I going to interact with this teacher? If the teacher's not a Mentor high school teacher, then how in the world is this going to work? What is this going to look like? And so forth. Well, the way it's going to work is you are going to experience a series of live lessons from this teacher in your online course when you log in on a daily basis. However, you need to understand that depending on the course that you're signed up for, the degree to which you experience live lessons from the teacher is going to vary a little bit. So, for example, in some courses, like during a particular week, you may have a live lesson with the Pearson teacher maybe 2-3 times a week. In other courses, that may be once a week. In other courses, it may be less than once a week. So there's going to be a range as far as the degree to which you interact with the Pearson teacher, like in a live setting during your class. So it's important for you to understand that item, because again, that is a little bit, in some cases, it's a lot different than the traditional classroom environment where, you walk into your algebra class at the high school here and you have a daily live, obviously, interaction with your teacher. That is going to be a little bit different as far as how the online courses are going to work, and it's important for you to understand that. Now, you may think, well, what in the world am I going to be doing in this class on the days where I'm not meeting with the teacher in a live setting? What is this going to look like? Well, there's going to be a number of things you're going to be doing on the days you're not interacting in a live session with the teacher. There's going to be taped lessons that you're going to be viewing. There are going to be assignments and projects that you're going to be involved in working on during your class time. Those types of things. But it's our job at the high school to give you as kind of crisp a picture as possible as far as what this experience is going to look like for you when you begin the class in August. The third bullet point, where do I go? Are there attendance requirements? This is an online course. Do I need to be somewhere physically? Or can I just take this class, wherever and whenever I want? And the answer is there are very specific attendance requirements for this class. Every student who's signed up for one of these online courses is going to be assigned to the upper hub. And you need to go there every day to take this class. So, what does that mean? What it means is on day one, when you get your paper schedule, your online class is going to be listed as one of your classes in your class schedule. And these courses are going to be scheduled like every class period. So, let's say I'm taking AP Geography, for example. That course, I'm going to see that course on my schedule, and that course may be on my schedule mod 5-6. So at the beginning of 5-6, every day I need to report to the upper hub with my MacBook, and I'm going to log in for my class in the upper hub every day. And so there are very, very specific attendance requirements for this class, as opposed to kind of like the scenario, well, it's an online class, I can take it in the evening, I can do it on the weekend, I can do it on my own time, those kinds of things. That is not the way that this course dynamic is going to look. And again, that is a third very significant feature that we need to keep in mind as far as the experience that you're going to be having for next school year. How about the grading process? How is this going to work with regards to grading? Who's going to assign the grades? Where are they going to appear? Who's responsible for grading my stuff, my work, and giving me a final grade? The answer is the Pearson teacher that you're going to be working with is the exclusive person who is going to be grading all of your work. Homework, quizzes, tests, final exams, the whole nine. The Pearson teacher is going to assign you a final grade for your course, and that grade is going to go on your transcript, your Mentor High School transcript, just like a normal course, and it'll carry the same academic weight with regards to your GPA. But you need to understand that it's the Pearson teacher who's going to be grading you, rather than a Mentor High School teacher, or rather than Mentor High School kind of deciding your grade somehow. So again, an important piece of information for you. The last bullet point there is extremely important. What if I need help? What if I think all of us have experienced a situation in classroom where we don't understand what's going on. We don't understand the material for the day. It's happened to me a lot. What do you do if you need help? Pursuing help at Mentor High School is not really an option, because this is a course that's not taught by Mentor teachers. So if you have questions or concerns or issues with regards to course content, you need to contact the Pearson teacher directly via email. Or you can do that, or like in the evening if you're having trouble with the coursework and so forth. There's an academic assistance, literally phone line, that's available from Pearson that you will call in for assistance. And those phone lines from what's been described to us are open, late into the evening, like 10, 11 p.m. Eastern. They're late, assistance areas or assistance centers. You'll either speak with your teacher, or you're going to speak with another a tutor or an adult at the organization who can help you with your class. But again, that is a much, much obviously different dynamic than what we're all used to. It's important you understand that before the course begins, so it's not a surprise to you, kind of how these things are going to operate through the school year. So those are important kind of details about how this is going to look. The next section that we want to talk about has to do with what we've titled it Misconceptions and Myths, because there are a great number of misconceptions about what online coursework looks like, or what the online coursework experience is. And maybe the biggest misconception is the first one up there, that the course is going to be easier. I think there is a definite perception that online classes are easier than our regular kind of traditional classes. And that is not the case at all. I think you need to prepare yourself that the online course you're going to be taking is going to be at least as challenging and possibly more challenging than taking a class in a traditional class setting. And that, again, is very surprising to people as far as their first experience. As far as my experience, I've taken, in the classes I've had to take, like in college and beyond, I've had to take 2 online courses, and only 2. But each of them were significantly more difficult than I thought they were going to be. Specifically, like with the amount of writing that I had to do in these online courses that I took, it was much more challenging than your traditional class setting. So we need to kind of understand that going in. The second bullet point, the course is unsupervised. Progress is not monitored. There's no attendance requirement. That's all false. That is all false. The course is going to be supervised by the Pearson teacher. It's going to be supervised as far as attendance at the upper hub. Your progress is going to be monitored. You're going to have graded assignments, just like your traditional class. So we need to kind of proceed with that mindset. Number 3 up there is a big one. This misconception that in an online course I can work at my own pace is a huge misconception. We have some students this year at the high school, in certain circumstances, who are taking an online class. And it's not uncommon for students to think that there's no due dates or there's no completion dates for the course. That is false. There are due dates that are assigned to every assignment that you have in an online class virtually. And if you don't meet those due dates, if you don't meet those deadlines, there are consequences to that, or there can be consequences of that academically, just like a traditional classroom setting. So we need to understand that as students before we enter into this program. And then the last point, there's no consequences if I don't do well. That is just a false statement. The grade that you get in this online class is going to be the same grade as far as academic weight as a grade you get in any of the classes you take here at Mentor. That's going to go on your transcript in the same, it's going to hit your GPA in the same amount of weight. We need to understand that so that you have an honest and detailed understanding of how you need to approach this class starting next year, literally the first week of school. The first week of school, we have to be thinking of these things. Now, there's a couple things that we'd like to show you here, just very briefly. And the presentation that we have here is going to be forwarded to your parents. And we would encourage both you and your parents to kind of click on these couple of links and take a closer look at some of the material so that, again, you can make an informed decision about whether or not this experience is something that's a fit for you. So there's some bold-faced type up there, and as we go through this briefly, I would ask you to consider these statements as far as how they relate to you as an individual student. And if you can answer like yes to these statements, then you're probably a real good fit as far as an online class. But if your response is, no, that doesn't really describe me as a student, or I'm not sure that describes me as a student, you're kind of thinking along those lines, then an online class may not be right for you, may not be a fit for you. I'll try to blow this up a little more here. Okay, the first one. Be organized, self-motivated, and self-disciplined. Does that describe you as an individual student at Mentor High School here? If the answer, as far as what you're thinking about, is yes, probably a good fit for an online class. If you can't answer yes to that statement, that's a red flag as far as whether or not this is a good avenue for you as far as the online courses. Be able to communicate through writing. Do you like to write? Are you a good writer? Do you like to read? Again, if you can answer yes to that, this is probably a path that's a fit for you. But if you're hesitant on that, or if that's a no, you need to proceed cautiously here as far as the online classes. Are you willing to speak up if problems arise in a classroom? So like in your traditional classes right now, if you're sitting in an algebra class or geometry class, and the teacher is going through some information, and you don't understand what's going on, are you comfortable with raising your hand and speaking up? Or do you kind of just let it ride? And it's like, I don't understand that, but I'll just kind of let that go. The only way that the Pearson teacher is going to know whether you have a problem or you don't understand the material through that computer or through that MacBook is if you speak up. And so you need to be thinking about that, whether or not that kind of describes you as a student. This next one has been a bit of a surprise to students as far as like the time requirements in this course. Are you willing and able to spend between 5 and 15 hours a week on this online course? Are you willing to do that? Are you able to do that? You're going to be obviously taking the class every day in the upper hub, but there's also going to be evening work. So is that something that's a fit for you or not? You need to thoughtfully think that through. And then lastly, do you have almost unlimited access to a computer, which all of you will with the MacBook, but do you have access to the internet outside of this school building? The answer needs to be yes there, because if it's not, potentially you may struggle. It may not be a fit for you as far as the online course. The other link that I want to just quickly show to you is basically kind of an online self-assessment that we've discovered, and we're kind of suggesting that you and your parents go through this. Take this self-assessment. It's going to basically score you as far as your readiness for an online course. So again, this is another kind of important device or important kind of link you can look at to get some more information about whether this is right or not for you as far as taking the online course for next year. So, just a couple more minutes and then we'll be done here. Again, some more logistics about this. So again, on day one, you're going to get your schedule. It may say that your online course is Mod 5-6. You're going to report to the upper hub every day as far as attendance requirements, and that's where you're going to be logging in and taking the class. Now, we need to understand that Mods 1 and 2 and Mods 15 and 16 are class periods for the online course. So let's say I get my schedule on day 1, and it turns out that my online class is during Mod 1-2. What that means is I need to report to school here at the start of 1-2 and get to the upper hub. It does not mean that I can stay at home, Mods 1-2, and take my online class and then report to school at the start of 3-4. Vitally important we understand that. On the flip side, let's say I get my schedule on day 1 and Mod 15-16 is where my online class is located in my schedule. That does not mean I can cut out of the building at the end of 13-14 to take the class or to log into the class. That means Mod 15-16, I have to report to the upper hub every day to take the class. Now, just to be clear, Mods 1-2 and Mods 15-16 are not the only class periods where the online courses are offered. The online courses, most of you are not going to have an online course during Mods 1-2 or 15-16, probably. But we need to understand that regardless of when it appears in your schedule during the day, that's when you've got to be there as far as the upper hub. Now, having said that, and this is a tentative at this point, the high school, we are going to consider relaxing those attendance requirements at some point during the course of the school year for students who are doing a really good job in the course. So for example, let's say it's the end of the first 9 weeks, for example, and I'm getting an A in my online class. In that scenario, the school is going to consider relaxing your attendance requirement at in the upper hub. Because you're doing a good job. You're doing, you're demonstrating that you're able to handle it. You're doing a good job with it, with the course. So we're going to grant that to you tentatively. But again, at the start of the school year and throughout much of the beginning of the school year, the attendance requirements are going to be very specific because we want everyone to get going with the class in as positive a manner as possible. So, what are some things that as a family you need to consider as far as whether this is the proper avenue for you as far as taking an online course for next year? There's a number of things. Grade point average might be the most important. You need to consider carefully how this class is going to impact your grade point average, because although it's a Pearson course, although there's a Pearson teacher teaching and grading you, the weight of that final grade towards your cumulative GPA at the high school here is going to be the same as any other class you're going to take during your high school travels here. Raise your hand if you're an athlete. Okay, we've got a lot of athletes in here. Raise your hand if you're involved in any extracurriculars at the high school. Okay, most of us, which is great, are either an athlete or involved in some kind of extracurricular. This course impacts athletic and co-curricular eligibility as far as grade point average and so forth. I'm going to take some questions right at the end, okay? But you need to understand that. If I'm a student who's an athlete, and at the end of the first 9 weeks, I happen to be receiving an F in my online class, I may well be ineligible for the next 9 weeks of the sport that I'm involved in. Because the same rules apply as far as athletic eligibility with regards to the Pearson online classes. Very, very important for everyone to understand that. The last thing we want to do is have students going ineligible due to the online courses because they didn't know this information in advance. Add drop deadlines are the same as any other class at the high school here. And what that means is the first 2 weeks of the first semester and the first 2 weeks of the second semester, that's the add drop period, where some adjustments in certain circumstances can be made to your schedule. But you need to understand that because we have students at the high school right now who are in some limited online classes, and it consistently comes up where a student is taking an online class for a month or 2 months, and they decide, you know what, I'm not doing well at this point in the class. I don't really like the class. It wasn't really what I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to stop taking the class. I'll just stop logging in. And, it's an online class, so it'll just kind of go away. That's not what happens here. If you proceed in that manner, you're going to end up getting an F in the class, and it's going to go on your transcript. So we need to understand that from the add drop deadline standpoint. Course completion deadlines. There is very, very little flexibility to go past the course completion date. So for example, let's say I'm taking a semester course in the first semester. So the end of the first semester is before the holiday break. Let's say I get to the holiday break and I'm 70% done with my class. And I may be getting an A, like all the material that I've handed in to the Pearson teacher is an A, but I'm only 70% done with the class. There's a real good possibility in that scenario you will receive an F for the course because you haven't completed the course. Again, my intention here is not at all to be overly negative, but we need to understand that because that scenario comes up somewhat consistently in some of the limited online course offerings we have at the high school this year. And then lastly, time. Do I, as a student, with all of the things that I might be involved in outside of, high school, outside of, the class day here, do I have time to commit to this course? You need to thoughtfully consider that as a family to determine whether this is in fact a wise, step for you. So in closing, what should you do next? Well, we would encourage you to do a couple of things. We'd encourage you to take the survey and look at the couple links that are in this presentation. Strongly encourage you to talk with your parents about this as far as, kind of the information you have now, whether this is a fit for you. If you have questions or concerns, the first point of contact at the high school here for you is your school counselor. I would strongly encourage you to speak with your school counselor if you have questions or concerns about this, about the course. We would strongly encourage you to take care of this during the month of May, meaning now, over the next couple of weeks, as opposed to waiting to the start of next school year to kind of talk with your school counselor, consider whether this is a fit. We want to resolve or get everybody comfortable with their decisions by the end of this school year over the next couple of weeks. As far as parents, if you have questions or concerns, you are more than welcome to contact me. Again, my name is Mr. McMahon, James McMahon. I'm the assistant principal at the one of the assistant principals at the high school. My email address is on the presentation there. So that's kind of what's next, as far as the steps for you. Now, I really appreciate your attention. I know this was kind of a long conversation, but I really appreciate your attention. Be happy at this point if anybody has any questions. I know that you had a question. Be happy to answer them. Do you have a question? Excellent question. The question is, will Pearson be using Pearson's grading system or like our grading system is how it works, as far as how this is going to work? It's going to look vastly similar to what we currently use. So there's not going to be a whole lot of differences there. Now, depending on the individual class, there may be a little distinctions, but it's going to be very recognizable as far as how this is going to look grade-wise. Yes, sir? Can you drop out of the class? Question is, can you drop out of the class? Well, during the first 2 weeks of next school year, okay, and this is important, during the first 2 weeks of next school year, or during the first 2 weeks of the second semester, if you're taking like a second semester course, if you get involved in it and say, wow, this is really not what I thought it was going to be, there is some flexibility. But again, that time frame is very limited. So it's important you understand that as far as the real kind of tight time frame add drop wise. Yes, ma'am? Excellent question. How does things line up with like our school vacation calendar during like the holiday break, during the spring break, things like that? Yes, you can log in during those times and complete the classes. The vast majority of Pearson classes, from what's been described to us, are going to line up with our like school calendar. So it's not going to be like an expectation, but yeah, that would be a possibility. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. Great question. What happens if you're absent? Like if you're sick from school, that kind of thing? Let's say I'm sick for 3 days, from school. What does that mean for my online class? That there will be some flexibility there. But my suggestion is if you're homesick and you're not, and you feel like you're able to do it, I would encourage you to log in anyways and take the class, period. Because if you don't, then when you get back to school, I mean, as we all know, when you come back to school after an absence, you're behind a little bit. There's work to make up, those kinds of things. The same will hold true with the Pearson class. But that's a great question as far as what, if I am out of school here, what does that mean for the class? Good question. Yes, sir. The question is, as far as kind of progress report grades, is that going to be uploaded in Infinite Campus, or is that going to be, or is the only kind of grade that's going to go in Infinite Campus the final grade? Is that what I'm hearing from you? There's not going to be like the formal progress report information in Infinite Campus that we're used to, but there are going to be consistent progress reports that are issued from Pearson. It's probably not going to appear in Infinite Campus as consistently as what we experience, but it's going to be as far as like your parents' email or your email, those kinds of things, that will be available. Yes, sir? How do you turn in your assignments? Excellent question. Well, there's going to be a couple different ways you're going to do that. It's all going to be electronic. It's all going to be electronic. It's either going to be via email, possibly Google Docs, possibly the Pearson platform itself. But it's all going to be done electronically. So you're not going to be like printing things out and handing them into some, mailbox here. It's all going to be done electronically. But as far as the specifics of it, there might be some variation from class to class. Yes, ma'am? Days that the internet is down. Let's say the internet connection at the high school here is down for the mod 3.4 when you're in the upper hub. Let's say your internet connection is down at your house in the evening. Now what? There's going to be some flexibility because we all know that this is not 100%, absolutely working all the time. There's going to be some flexibility there. Having said that, there are going to be deadlines that people need to attend to. And so you need to be thinking about those things. Those are great questions. Yes, ma'am? Good question. Are these courses year-round courses, or are these courses half-year courses, semester courses? The answer is both. Some of the courses that are being offered next year are year-long, one-credit courses. Some of the courses are half-year, one-semester courses, half-credit courses, just like, for example, students, you take your phys ed class is a half-year course. So raise your hand if you know whether or not you signed up for a year-long or a half-year course. Okay, about 30% of us. That's interesting. Okay, you might want to go back and look at that because that's going to have some impact, as far as kind of your overall academic program. But some of the classes are half year, some of them are a full year. Yes, ma'am. Question is, do you need to work on weekends as well for this online course? Is that kind of hit it? The answer to that is it's going to depend to a significant extent. Just like when you're sitting in a traditional class here. I'm sitting in my world history class, mods 5, 6. I've got a project that's due on Monday, and today is Friday. And I'm not done with that project, so I got to work over the weekend to get that project done. The same kind of a dynamic is going to be in play for your online class. But you're going to need to be working on the online class logged into it. Whereas maybe like with your world history project, you're like typing a paper or a poster board or something along those lines. So it's going to depend on how up to date you are, those kinds of things. Go ahead. Oh, if we have like a pep rally here, for example, mods 3, 4, like mods 3, 4, something along those lines. It's going to depend on what the specific lesson is for that day. So, for example, if there is, let's say maybe you have a quiz you need to take today, and we happen to have an assembly during that time period. What will happen there is you'll have the opportunity to log in at another time to take that. Or, like the school will notify Pearson of that, or the Pearson teacher of that. Or you could notify the Pearson teacher of that. And there'd be some flexibility. Yeah. That's a great question. Yes, sir. Late start Wednesdays. Let's say you have your online class during mods 1, 2, and on late start Wednesdays, when do you arrive at the building? We are going to have students arrive at the normal time, meaning it's 7:22 on late start Wednesdays, at least at the start of the school year. That's an excellent question. Excellent question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, the question is as far as kind of different bell schedules, how will that apply? Yes, they will be aware of that. Correct. Yes. Yes, sir. Well, good question. Is the course fee covered by the school, or is there some type of cost to the family? Am I right on that? Mentor covers the cost of the courses. Yeah. So you're not financially on the hook, or you're obligated for this. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Great questions. Excellent questions. Yes, ma'am. Excellent question. Can I work ahead? Can I work ahead on the material? The answer is, to an extent, yes. Mm-hmm. However, there are going to be some limitations as far as how far ahead I can work. You can't these courses are not designed so that you can kind of like knock the class out in 5 weeks, for example, or something along those lines. You need to be prepared to be enrolled and working in the class the entirety of the first semester, the entirety of the year. But yeah, you can, to an extent, depending on the class, work ahead. Yeah. Any other questions that anyone has at this point? Yes, ma'am. Question, can you take the MacBook Airs home with you? Yeah. Yes. They are yours to handle. Now that comes with a significant amount of responsibility, obviously, because you're being issued a device that is a sensitive device, and it's a somewhat expensive device. And you need to carefully handle those, But yeah, you can take them home overnight, on the weekends, during breaks. Yes, they're yours. They're yours to work with. Yes. As far as the devices, do you hand the devices in at the end of the school year? There's a number of things we haven't quite finalized, to be honest with you, with regards to devices, So I don't want to make any declarations up here that I'm not 100% sure of. But that's kind of one of the things that has not been quite finalized at this point. Yes, ma'am. If you break or lose your MacBook, to what extent are you obligated as a student or as a family? That's going to depend. There are a number of kind of items at the beginning of next school year that all families are going to go through as far as kind of like an introductory meeting regarding devices for next year before they're issued. And a lot of that type of detailed information is going to be covered at those meetings because they're going to be, to an extent, there are going to be some options available to families as far as how they kind of want to carry these devices, so to speak. So that's going to be kind of set out for everybody towards the start of next school year. But it's an excellent question. Yes, ma'am. When are you going to get your MacBook? Right now, everybody's going to be issued their MacBook a week or two before the start of the school year. So there are going to be right now a series of meetings that are going to be held at the high school, both like evening and then possibly during the day as well, where there's going to be literally there's going to be kind of a presentation that you're going to kind of watch. You need to kind of sign some stuff and so forth, and then you're going to get your device. So the plan is that every student is going to have their MacBook in their hand by day one. Now, having said that, we have 2,700 devices to issue. And so that's going to look, that may not be, it's not going to be 100% smooth, let me say it that way, okay? If you want your device before day one, you can get it. All right, excellent questions. All right, really appreciate your attention for this. Talk to your school counselor, talk to your parents. You guys can get back, if you would, back right last couple of minutes back to 3-4, and have a good weekend. Thank you.